Good morning, Green Bay. I see you out there. Germany, I see you too. And I think I saw someone from Austin, Texas. Woo. How's the heat down in Austin? What's it showing there? 92 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, that's a warm one. Well, this is kind of like Laptop Hound in the Matrix because I usually don't stream on Sundays. I'm usually a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday kind of guy. But today, so much is happening over the next week. I thought, I need to pop on. I need to bring back a special guest, and we need to talk OOTP because there is, it's like Christmas tomorrow in OOTP land because we get a reboot of OOTP. We get something that, has been progressing and doing a lot of good things, and all of a sudden, boom, it's a big flash of newness for Out of the Park baseball. And of course, 1 week from yesterday, we will have the PTCS. Yes, PTCS4. And that's going to be the main part of this stream here. I know it's Sunday. I know a lot of people are probably outside and in the warm weather, and we've got a couple other streamers on right now. I'm not worried about how many are here now because this is going to be on the VOD, and I'm hoping a lot of people can catch this over the next week to get some tips and hints and tricks for the PTCS. So welcome all in. I am Laptop Hound, streaming Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays around this time. Okay, let's get on to the main point of the show today, getting you hyped up about tomorrow, but getting you prepared, making you think a little bit about next Saturday. Is anyone in the chat ready for the PTS? Has anyone qualified for the PTCS next week? I know there's a lot of new people because I always see new names on streams in the Discord with the sales that have gone on and the All-Star break and the trade deadline. I think OOTP has sold a few more copies of the game and more people are starting to play Perfect Team. So if you're new to the game, the PTCS is held about once every 6 weeks, and you can qualify by playing in one of the 10 designated tournaments that have the little stars in the tournament area. And based on how well you do over the course of those 6 weeks, you accumulate points, which then places you hopefully into the top 128, which means you qualify for the PTCS. And you can win some amazing cards. This next cycle, Ali Reynolds, very playable in gold, probably going to be one of the best low gold pitchers for those that win him. You've got the Juan Moncada card with his beautiful original Topps card there, because last week was the top set. We also have, for those finishing 5th to 8th, we've got the Jim Edmonds card. I know a lot of you remember Jim Edmonds, great center fielder for the Cardinals. Gaylord Perry, San Francisco Giants. Gaylord Perry is going to go to those that finish 3rd and 4th. And then the penultimate cards, 2nd place gets Boston Red Sox, Dustin Pedroia. Yeah, he is going to be, if not the best second baseman, he's up there with Jackie for sure as the best second baseman in the game. And for finishing first, Honus Wagner, who can play short. He can play left field, third base, first base, DH. So going to be a very useful card and right up there with the Lou and all those other meta. But only 10 people are going to get these cards. 10 second place finishers, 10 first place finishers. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how you can prepare and hopefully do much better if you've qualified for the PTCS. For those of you that are new and want more information about what the PTCS is, about a month ago, I did a video breaking down what the PTCS is and what the PTMS is. That's a whole new different tournament. There's the YouTube video that I created for that. A lot of great content creators out there. Go to YouTube, type in OOTP24, and you'll see some amazing productions from our community. This PTCS on Saturday, 2 important things to note. What year does it take place? 1934. And which field? It's a new addition to these tournaments. is it going to be played in, and that is in Forbes Field. Very important. That's why this video, if you're watching on VOD, if you're watching on Twitch Live right now, this video is going to be extremely helpful to me too. It's going to be extremely helpful to me. Here are the criteria for each of the 10 tournaments. So with the perfect drafts, if you qualified, you're going to get the pick 12 choices in perfect and diamond rounds. LEs are on in both of them. Good luck getting the Sandy Koufax, Ken Griffey Jr. Good luck getting those two. And then you see the other qualifications. Looks like just one cap tournament this cycle, and that's a 2150 diamond cap, which Charles last week said is a extremely fair cap for that tournament. So that's what's coming up. Good luck on Saturday as you compete for these cards. And again, feel free to come over to my Discord. And we've got a lot of the guests that I bring on, 39 Cobra, Mr. Black, Charles, Kidneys. A lot of the guests I bring on are in the Discord and very willing to answer your questions. They'll answer them in the regular Discord, but sometimes it gets pushed away and pushed down and they don't see them. So yeah, feel free to join my Discord and ask away if you're looking for advice or help. All right. Let's bring in the man of the hour to the show. Welcome back in from San Diego, California. We know him as Mr. Black. How you doing?
Morning. How do I sound?
You sound fantastic. I can hear you. The community can hear you. I always like to ask my guests, what's the weather in San Diego today?
We have been in the midst of a heat wave for about a month now. So a typical San Diego day, it's cloudy in the morning, but it's completely cleared up by 9 o'clock. It's hot by 11, and it'll cool down in the afternoon. We're getting those days, except there's no clouds in the morning. So it's probably going to be about 85 to 90 Fahrenheit.
Okay, not too extreme. And you know, we love the sideburns, we love the chops, whether they're mutton chops and an old era style. Very, very cool. You got the look going, Mr. Black. Ambrose Burnside wishes he sounded like you. So there you go.
We can hear you. He would have sounded like me, but that's okay. At least he tried. But remember, he was on the right side.
Well, I guess, yeah, everything's perspective in this world. And the world is a funny place sometimes, and it's continuing to be a funny place. But we're enjoying OOTP. Are you qualified? Do you think you're going to qualify for any of these 10 tournaments?
I think I've got tickets for 6. I don't think I'm going to make bronze or gold. I may or may not make iron. It depends on how I do in the last 3 tournaments today.
Oh, okay. So yeah, today is the last day to qualify. So any tournament you're in today counts. And you'll notice when you go to the tournaments, a lot of them are missing. Some of the dailies are missing now because they regenerate tomorrow. So don't worry, it's not your game. This is intentional. Tomorrow you're going to see the regeneration of all the new tournaments. So they're kind of on the last legs of the old ones here, especially the ones that are changing around. Also, the point standings. Remember the point standings. You can check out how you're doing in the PTS qualification by going to the last tab. I can't remember what it is right now. It is
tournament rankings, I think.
Tournament rankings. Yeah. So let me bring mine up quick because I do have it on here. Because some people do not realize that when they enter these tournaments, they're getting points. So when you go to your main screen, you click on Show Tournaments. For new people, the traditional tournaments, you have to own the cards. So if you want to enter any of these, you select cards out of your card bank to participate. The perfect drafts, it's like a draft. You select cards in a number of cards that are given to you to select from, whether it's 6 or 12. So you select cards to fill up your roster of 26. You can look back on how well you've done in tournaments, you know, whether you've won, whether you've placed. You can go check that out for all your different tournaments too. And you can even go and examine. You can look back on the whole tournament look at the stats, look at what the good teams had, and look how your team did. So your tournaments, really important information gathering for tournaments you've been in. And then you've got the tournament rankings. So when you click on that, you have to select which tournaments are you playing in. So let's say I'm playing in the bronze. Then you want to select the time period. And the PTCS this period 4 ran from July 3rd until today. And you let it bring up the results, and it shows you the leaderboard. So I've been fortunate enough. The Johnny Cash luggage tags have been fortunate to place 9th so far in the bronze. So I've qualified for the bronze PTCS. The Deborah Can Giants, congrats, number 1. They played 84 tournaments. I've played 22. So I've been really successful in the ones that I've played to get up as high as I am. So, and that's thanks to, people like Mr. Black and Charles and your kidneys and other modelers out there that have given me tips along the way. Again, for these tournaments, all of them, it's 128 that qualify. So you scroll down, you look for your name. It should be highlighted in green. And right now, the Palm Beach Polar Bears are kind of on the bubble there with the Moon Whalers, the Pacific Ocean Dolphins. But as I scroll up, a lot of common familiar names. Sea Shockers, I see there. I see the Red Eclipse, Teddy O, Ricky Vaughn, Cito is there, Jim Leland, Evil Smokey Bear. Who else? Camp Vogel, D. Dempsey, almost in the top 50. Yeah, we got some Mr. Audit is up there. Congrats. Who else do we got? 68 Pirate. Bailey is right up there in the top 6. And I don't know if Mr. Black, if you know, once this cycle ends, do the top 10 get some sort of points or prizes or something?
I don't think there is one for the end of the cycle. However, there is one once per week. So if you take the drop downs on the top, instead of using period 4, you select the week. And the top 10 for each week do get a point prize of some kind.
Okay. So if I go to the week of July 24th to July 30th, there we go. We have, and these are the ones that usually Dish will show on his Thursday stream, who's kind of leading each of these different tournaments. And so there you go. I guess I got some points last week. I don't know, but I played 5 tournaments and somehow finished 3rd. So I will take it. So yes.
5 and your average was less than 6, which means you made the quarterfinals on average in each time. Wow.
I guess I'm not a math guy.
So see there it says 66 points, 5 played. The combined number is 29. That's the total sum of your placements. 1 for first, 2 for second, all the way down. And your average is 5.8, which means your average finish of the 5 tournaments you played was the top 8, 6th.
So someone with an average of 22.86 is much better then?
Is much worse than you.
Oh, much worse. So the lower, the better.
Correct.
Okay.
Lost every single game in a daily, you'd have an average of 64. If you made the first round, you won the first round and lost in the second every time, you'd have an average of 32. Go to the third round and lose every time, you'd have an average of 16, which is a base 2 logarithm. Now, friends don't let friends do logarithms, so don't worry about it too much. But pretty proud. You did really well that week in bronze.
Woohoo! All right. And now, so if I'm reading this correctly, this Berkeley Golden Bears did even better.
Yeah, three tournaments, total number of 8, which is probably something like 1st, 2nd, and 5th in 3 tournaments. So be glad he only played 3 of them.
Yeah. Just imagine if he played 22 like some of these other teams. He'd be smoking up there at the same pace. So again, those of you in chat, if you're playing in tournaments, whether they're traditional, because it's the same for the daily drafts or the weekly drafts, where you get a selection of cards to choose from. You go through, you select the time period, And I don't know how well I did in this one. I didn't play in as many, but the Sacktown Trash Pandas, #1 in the cycle so far. And again, it's the top 128. There's the Sea Shockers, Camp Vogel, Monterre Dawn, Red Eclipse. There's a lot of good managers. Chadwick's in there, Isadafo, Cedar Rights, Dark Chaos Gaming, Bride Ave, Punk. Congratulations, Punk, from the PBE Sim community. Exto4ras, one of the affiliate streamers. Cito again. Sav510. Cito's doing well. And again, goes down to the top 128. So GT Sundown, my manager in EMLB. Come on, you got to get a few more points here. Yeah, so there we go. I don't even see my name on there because I don't play a lot of these ones on the account. D Dempsey, see you up there as well. And if you play only once a week in the weekly drafts, same thing. Let's take a look. Let's give a shout out to the weekly draft qualifiers, some of them. 9th Planet Sentinels, #1. So an average of 56. Who else? Twins.
The averages are almost always higher for the draft simply because you never know what you're going to get. If you get a bad draft, sorry, see you tomorrow. See you next week.
Yeah. Lowly Worm, Admiral Relativity, Brew Crew Bombers, Mystery. Good to see you on one of the leaderboards. Camp Vogel again. So we're going to have managers that have qualified for multiple, because I'm seeing a lot of the same names. The Huseman, D Dempsey's up there, Mac Jack. There's Beetle Boy, watches a lot of the affiliates. So on the bubble is the Sacramento Valley Hurons, 128th. So I don't know how many tournaments run today, but tournaments that are running today still will count for this. So there you go, guys. That is how you can check in on how you're doing. Again, this is updated once a week, so it doesn't show this week's individual standings because that's done at the end of the Sunday tournament. All right. And Mr. Black, you said, what's one of the tournaments you qualified for?
I did the most in wild card this last cycle.
I
don't think I missed a single daily live cap if I could help it.
Yeah, these are ones where you have to have your own card, which at the higher levels, I do not have a lot of the really good ones needed. So we got Albany, we got Aster 31. Yeah, we got some really top level players here, and C. Whitman, Fussmucker. There you go. There's our trivia. Usually our trivia champ each week. Fussmucker's in there. And again, still a chance if any tournaments are running today.
Yeah, if you with 20 points at 128th, that means one daily win today gets you in.
All it takes. One daily win. Is it the same where the lowest number means that they're on average doing better?
For averages, yes.
Okay, so Entry TBD 17.17. Very good.
Unfortunately, with the wild card this year, the daily live cap is the easiest one to get into. You can probably afford a few live cards. However, the category also includes the daily special edition only. Oh boy, some of the limited editions you need to play in that tournament are unreasonably expensive.
And a lot of people play Iron. Is probably the most accessible, especially for new players to play the Iron, because you can get Iron cards really easily. Some of the LEs might cost you more, but let's take a look at the Iron. OK Oaks, Madison Moundsman. Hey, there's D Dempsey's Orleans Firebird #3 on my Dave Steve team. They're #8. Dempsey, you got me this time. What's my average? 20.89. So I've played 35 of those daily Iron tournaments. And I Rock This is in there. Good. Who else do we got? Stratico, I've seen in Discord. Mystery in there. Zen Lunatic. Andy Sheffield, we got a Brit. 103rd should be pretty safe. I'd be a little worried if you were in in the 120s somewhere. So Long Lake Dragons with one more daily tournament going tonight for the Iron. It's full already, but still a chance if some of these teams are entered in tonight's tournament. Good luck. So silver, bronze, gold, diamond, PTCS qualifying to try for that Honus Wagner card. Okay. Well, Mr. Black brought you on for a reason, and that is to discuss how some of these people in chat or watching on the VOD can improve their team. So I'm going to put up a wonderful slide presentation that Mr. Black put together. And yes, we are in 1933. So we got to act like we're in 1933.
And unfortunately, I was not able to locate a hat myself, so I apologize.
Well, I think you've got the look for old time baseball. So PTCS4 Forbes Field, 1937, and Mr. Black being a writer and creative and loving history, we're gonna incorporate some of the flavor, the sights of 1934 America as we go through this, because we want to get you into that 1934 spirit. What was going on in the USA? The Great Depression was underway, and of course, the gangsters, the mafia, the mob. So Mr. Black has incorporated some historical facts into his presentation today. So Mr. Black, as always, just let me know when you want me to advance on. This is the heist at the House of Thrills. Okay. And I see coffee in there. I love coffee.
Okay, so first things first, this is a strategy guide for the PTCS tournament coming up this Saturday, 6 days from today. We're going to be going over the things you'll need to know, such as playing in 1934 as opposed to 2010, playing in Forbes Field, because this is the first time we're going to be playing in a park other than Perfect Park for these tournaments. I'm going to go over some recommended pitcher and batter shapes because Forbes Field is very unusual and you'll need to understand what's going on there to pick your team. Roster construction is going to be different than 2010, so we'll go over that too. We'll take a look at slider ball usage and also the concept of inventing a bullpen. And then at the end, a little bit about micromanagement and some words of wisdom. Now, there's a lot of extra stuff in here to try to make it entertaining and keep everyone's attention, but let's be real, you're here for the baseball stuff. I understand. Look for the red exclamation point in the top right of some slides, like this one. If you want to screenshot, clip, or otherwise take away the bare essentials and bottom lines, look for the red exclamation point in the slides that have it. Okay?
Okay. And feel free, if you have any questions as we're going through this chat, feel free to ask. And when I can fit one in there, I will definitely have Mr. Black answer it for you. There you go. Let's continue on.
Now, fair warning. We're about to get a card drop of over 350 cards tomorrow. We have no idea what those cards are going to be and how many of them are going to be great or awful for 1934. So I'm not going to be making any card recommendations. However, I'm going to be recommending against playing two cards. Cards that typically play in most tournaments. I think they're really good in 2010, just not in 1934, not in Forbes Field. Other than that, all the cards mentioned are ideas and suggestions, but they aren't recommendations. I'm going to do a little bit of CYA right here.
Okay. And that's very fair warning. We don't want to give specific cards because that could change tomorrow. It's the card shape. It's the attributes.
Correct. That's what we're going to go for here. So, all right, let's go to 1934. That year, the Cardinals defeated the Tigers in 7 games to win the series, and Lou Gehrig won the AL Triple Crown with a batting average of .363, missed 50 homers by 1, and 166 RBI. And when I was looking into this, I was very surprised that almost all the major bank robbers of the Prohibition era died in the course of a robbery, like Babyface Nelson, Pretty Boy Floyd, Bonnie and Clyde, and Public Enemy number 1, John Dillinger.
Wow, that's quite the coincidence that all these in the same year of 1934. Speaking of public enemy number one.
That's correct. He was named public enemy number one by J. Edgar Hoover in the BOI, which is the forerunner of the FBI. When he started out, he was a nobody. He was incarcerated at 21 years old for a small-time robbery of a grocery store for $50. He served his time in Indiana State Prison in Michigan City, Indiana, before being paroled in 1933. Prison did nothing to make him nicer. As a matter of fact, he once said, "When I leave this place, I'm going to be the meanest man you ever met." While he was inside, he met and befriended two professional bank robbers who played for stakes a little higher than $50 in that grocery store. After his release, Dillinger decided to aim a lot higher and be much more successful bank robbery using what his friends taught him, which is called the Lamb technique.
All right. Public enemy number one. I just remember the Star Trek episode where Kirk and McCoy, or Kirk and the team, went back to the 1930s. Edge of Tomorrow, I think it was called.
Yeah, you got Spock sitting there in his hat, just quietly trying to sound as much of a local as he can. Yeah, I remember that one. So anyway, the Dillinger gang lasted about a year. They are known to have robbed about 13 banks, committed 3 jailbreaks, attacked 2 police arsenals, and have stolen upwards of $300,000 between 1933 and 1934. That would probably be about $1.2 to $1.5 million today, adjusting for inflation. Dillinger finally met his end on July 22nd, 1934, when BOI agents shot him dead outside a Chicago movie theater, showing the Clark Gable movie Manhattan Melodrama. Only a few miles away that day, the White Sox were crushed by Gehrig's Yankees, 15-2.
All right. Getting into the 1934 spirit.
Now let's get down to brass tacks. Dead ball is gone. Dead ball is over. We don't play it that way anymore. In 1934, the major leagues had abandoned small ball to play a station-to-station game. In fact, most rebirth era years look very similar to modern era most of us are used to playing. There's little to no interest in base stealing or ground ball singles. Batters are drawing walks and swinging for the fences. But there is one major difference you need to be aware of. Hitters are not willing to suffer strikeouts, while modern hitters are. In fact, the driving reason for fewer homers is batters being unwilling to make the walk of shame back to the dugout after striking out.
All right.
That's the biggest difference. That's what you need to be aware of.
So in 1934, hitters not willing to suffer strikeouts. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Good to know.
Okay, so I pulled these numbers from Baseball Reference over on the right. Each column is either 2010 or 1934, and then a little bit of my own personal opinion on how high or low that number is. If you know modern era, there's more home runs than any other era, also lots of walks, but also lots of strikeouts. However, this is 1934. Both the home run rates and the strikeout rates are down nearly by half. Still, though, slugging is better than hitting singles. It just is for scoring runs in baseball. It is easier to score a run with one swing of the bat than, say, 3 swings of the bat. So, even with the lower home run rates, it is still recommended that you attempt to hit home runs and slug to score runs. Coincidentally, triples are noticeably higher. Maybe the outfielders were not as good, and also the parks were significantly wacky to cause triples, including the one we'll be playing in today. Now, doubles and walks, however, are about the same as modern era. Also, notice that the BABIP rate, the percentage of balls that are put in play that fall in for hits, is almost the same. Now, there's more hits overall in the first row, but that comes from fewer strikeouts, as there's on average 4 more balls in play than modern era.
Okay, so my takeaway, just kind of looking at eye test here, big differences between modern era and the park we're playing in is the K rate a lot lower, as you said. Players aren't striking out, and still a lot of high in all those other areas. So almost everything.
Swing the bat, bring some power, bring some gap power too to hit doubles and triples. Feel free to bring I for walks, except anti-Ks is just not really a priority here.
All right. So, yeah, if they've got red in the avoid Ks, not a big deal in 1934.
Okay, so go for the minor stuff that may not be too important. Let's not spend too much time on wild pitches and balks. Now, stolen base attempts are down a little, and the success rate is down by a lot. There's not a lot of value to be gained by stolen bases, and there's a lot of value to lose unless someone with a hold runners of one, like Ted Trent, is pitching. Sacrifice bunts are up. You are much more likely to succeed if you choose to sacrifice bunt. Are you sure you want to be sacrifice bunting when you're playing for walks and homers? I don't know. It's up to you, but personally, I wouldn't. Now, errors are nearly doubled across the board. And when I looked at them by position, most of them were middle infielders, shortstop, and second base, and surprisingly, left fielders. Many more errors from the left fielders in 1934 than the other outfield spots. There are also more outfield assists. They are still rare, but they have gone to slightly less rare. I hope you don't get thrown out at home, especially when you're all these home run hitters who don't really run all that fast.
All right. So defense, extremely important, more important for your second base, your shortstop, and left field. Yeah, that is interesting. You saw more errors with the left field. So I guess with the rating, then that outfield error becomes a little bit more critical for those three positions.
Absolutely. Remember, if an infielder makes an error, it turns an out into a single. If an outfielder makes an error, it typically turns an out into a double or maybe even a triple. Okay. So the bottom line from the numbers is this. With the fewer strikeouts, pitcher stuff and catcher ability just aren't as helpful. Building your defense about strikeouts is much less likely to work than it is in 2010. Now, since you can't strike the batters out, you'll have to use your gloves in order to get them out. Play defense at every position here, including first base, except for DH and catcher. Bring a bat at catcher. That guy needs to be able to help you score runs. Now, as mentioned, avoid Ks just isn't really a priority here. The error ratings are much more high, especially for second base, shortstop, and left field. Now, the BABIP rates are still high, even though everyone's going to be bringing gloves. So with few strikeouts and less homers, BABIP is priority for every batter, along with both power and gap, because you want to make these extra balls in play count.
Okay. So, we go back and we look at, how Jeff Mathis is such a key card in many different eras and tournaments. However, what you're kind of implying here is he's not as critical in this tournament here because you want a catcher with the BABIP rather than with the glove.
Correct. Because there just aren't enough strikeouts to be had, and catcher's ability is not going to lower the walk rates enough. A defense-first catcher is not recommended in this tournament.
Okay, and that, I think, those of you that are watching this and taking notes, and again, I want to qualify this with, we all have our different look at the game and how the game should be played and the best way to play the game. And so many people offer, advice in the tournament. This is, Mr. Black's advice on what he believes will make your team more successful for this tournament coming up. And feel free to play your own game and play the players that you want, have fun and do your best. But sometimes, when people are on streams or, on a talk show or whatever, that guy knows everything about the game. This is, again, personal opinion. I trust a lot of it. I think you guys should trust a lot of it. And Jeff Mathis, I think a lot of people are going to just automatically think Jeff Mathis has to play in this tournament because he's the best low-level catcher. But Mr. Black is saying maybe you want to look for a different one for this one.
Camera and microphone disconnected for a moment.
Oh, there we go. You're back.
Okay. That may happen. It looks like it just bounces me and reconnects me. My system is significantly jankier today. I don't know why, but if you lose me, just give me a few seconds and I'll be back as quickly as I can.
Okay. Yeah, we are back.
Okay. So back in 1934, the Dillinger Gang used Chicago as their main base of operations. Most of their safe houses were there. However, they did range out quite a while as far as Iowa, South Dakota, Indiana, and Ohio. To hide from authorities, they traveled much further, such as Daytona Beach, Florida, and Tucson, Arizona. There's no recorded activity of the Dillinger Gang going further east, such as Pittsburgh. Although, if he went to Pittsburgh, do you think he might have taken in a ball game there?
Well, maybe some shenanigans happened. If he would have went to that ball game, 1934, what a year to live.
If he went to Pittsburgh in 1934 to see the Pirates play, he would have ended up visiting Forbes Field, which is where we would be playing this tournament.
Hey, good transition.
This was actually really cool. Doing the research for this, I thought this was pretty interesting. So it opened in 1909, only 4 months after the stadium broke ground, where the Pirates lost to the Cubs 3-2. Later in 1958, as the broadcaster gave it the nickname the House of Thrills after so many late inning comebacks by the Pirates this year. Now, originally, the Pirates owner at the time, his name was Barney Dreyfuss, hated cheap home runs, and he vowed there would be none at his ballpark. Its original dimensions were 365 to left, 457 to center, and although the foul pole in right was only 300 feet, it quickly became a much larger distance to right center. But times change, and when Hank Greenberg arrived in 1947, the Pirates moved the bullpens from left field foul territory to in front of the scoreboard and left, fencing it off from fair territory, like that little red line in the picture there. This moved the fences in nearly 30 feet. The area was dubbed Greenberg Gardens at first, and eventually Kiner's Corner. When Ralph Kiner retired at the end of the 1953 season, the original configuration with the 365-foot left field wall was restored. Now, do you remember what year we're playing this in Forbes Field in? What park factors for Forbes Field we'll be using?
Yes, you do need to consider park factors.
We're using the factors from 1952. Now, here they are. Batting averages are slightly up, only by 2%, but they're both up for both sides. Left-handed batters' home runs are significantly down by nearly an eighth. Right-handed batter home runs are up by an eighth. Doubles are slightly lower. Triples are up by an eighth. This park loves right-handed power hitters. The disparity is very significant, and the home run is the best way to score runs in 1934. Most of the offense will revolve around a right-handed batter hitting a home run into Kiner's Corner. Left-handed hitters will struggle to hit homers over the wall and right, but the odd dimensions make for a lot of triple opportunities. Look over on the right. There's almost as many triples as there are homers from left-handed hitters after you multiply the park factors times the rates.
Okay, well, this is probably one of the most important slides here because we're looking at the card for the right-handed batter that you kind of want to be looking for your specific tournament.
Correct. So there are plenty of left-handed batters who can hit home runs, but they're really going to wish they're going to be right-handed to hit home runs in Forbes Field. Otherwise, the lefties are probably going to be better attempting to hit for average or to hit for triples.
D. Dempsey says, break out those big gap players.
Especially for lefties, yes. Now, you can still hit home runs with high gap power, so a righty can still hit a line drive over the left field fence, and it's going to be easy.
Okay. I think we may have lost Mr. Black again. We don't want this information out. Let's get rid of them. Let's take them off air. Okay, so here is again the park factors, Forbes Field, Kiner's Corner, looking for those righty power hitters and gap hitters, especially for the lefties. We'll wait for Mr. Black to try and connect again, and I think
Hello?
we are back. Okay.
Yeah. I've got my USB connection here, and it'll sit here and not do anything for 20 minutes. And then you hear the disconnect, reconnect sound. And I go, oh, God dang it. All right, well, let's try to get through this quickly then in case this keeps happening. Now, there's something you need to be aware of. During the announcement stream on the official Out of Park Development's Twitch channel, some of the park factor numbers were incorrect. They got them transposed. The numbers on the previous slide are correct. And I encourage you to check in your game to what the park factors are in Forbes Field. You can see it it's one of the PT Plus parks, and you need to uncheck the only show eligible parks box to see it. So to see that, you go into your league, own team, info, ballpark, and you can see the list of all the ballparks you can choose from.
Does anyone remember offhand if that's a gold, achievement park or a?
It is a PT Plus park.
It is a PT Plus park. Okay, so to see that, you do need to be subscribed to PT Plus. Otherwise, it won't show it there.
Well, to select it, you can click that box that says only show eligible parks, and you'll be able to see it from there.
Okay, so there you go. So you can still see all parks. You just can't use it in your league. But you don't need to worry about that because it's already incorporated into the tournament. And I think Leo mentions, we're playing in the 1934 run environment, but using the 1952 Forbes Field park factors, which again is completely new to OOTP in the way that they're constructing this tournament.
And it's even more interesting because we're using one of the weirdest years from that park to play in it, where they specifically moved the fences in to take advantage of their power hitters. One other fun piece of advice one fact I found. Do you know what the Major League record for triples in a game by a team is?
Well, hold on to that thought because we got a break coming up here. We have a break here, guys. We're back in 2 minutes. Stay tuned for more PTCS talk coming soon. All right, welcome back in. Thank you, Nazbase, for the raid during the break there, bringing over some of your community over to this special Sunday edition with Mr. Black. We are here talking about how you can best prepare for the upcoming PTCS for those of you that have qualified. And already a lot of good information. If you missed the early part, you can catch it later on the video on demand. It will be up on my Twitch channel. Again, we're playing in Forbes Field with the 1930s environment. And we left off talking about, again, Forbes Field and some of the park factors and the types of players that you're going to be looking for. But before we get back to that, Mr. Black asked a question before the break and also mentioned how you can find the different park factors. So I want to quickly go through that. If we go to the game file here, just bring it up. Actually, I'll do that while you're giving the answer here. So what is the answer? Re-ask the question, and then what was the answer?
So the question was, what is the all-time single game record in Major League Baseball for triples in a game by a team? Well, if you're wondering, the answer is 8 triples in one game. And I don't think you need to be a genius to figure out that it was set by the Pittsburgh Pirates in Forbes Field.
So there you go. The importance of triples as you're creating your team, that gap power, especially again for the left-handed batters. Okay, I'm just going to bring up my file here so we can show people, the newer people, how they can find the different park factors. Probably, again, for new people, one of the steepest learning curves is, implementing that into their roster creation, because it's not just about the cards and the best cards. It's the best cards for that park and for that environment. Okay, you bring it up here.
Are you looking up a file, or are you looking in game from your league?
Just from the league.
Okay, so once you're there, we go to your team drop down on the top right.
Or customize.
Well, that will work. Yeah, that should work. Once we download all the logos, it's been a while since you've clicked in, haven't you? Yeah, look at all those packs too. 179.
Saving them up for tomorrow, baby. Saving them up for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, so customized team. And then Paul Park.
And you click off only show eligible parks. And Forbes Field is at the bottom. Now there's 3 drop-down menus. You want to change default view to modifiers. And unfortunately, each column is only labeled at the top. So make sure you know which column is which.
Yeah, maybe write these down on a piece of paper unless you've got a really good memory.
Average left and right, homers left and right, and then doubles, triples.
So left, right, doubles, triples. Okay, Forbes Field, you said was towards the bottom.
Yep, it's one of the PTCS. It's one of the PT Plus. There it is. So 1027, 1021 for average. Very low home runs for left, very high home runs for right. Slightly less doubles, more triples.
Okay. All right, we'll go back to the slides. While we're here, my theme team didn't quite make it, Mr. Black. My theme team had to go to an extra game 163, up against the Patroons, and we lost game 163, so we didn't make the playoffs in the bronze theme
for the
team.
Padres. Matt Halliday still hasn't touched home plate. We're still waiting.
Yeah. Well, and there will be. If you missed it earlier, I showed off some of the names of the cards that are going to be in packs tomorrow, and Roy Halladay is in packs tomorrow. So if you're a Roy Halladay Blue Jay fan, Phillies fan, he is going to be in packs. Okay, let's go back to the slides here. Again, talking 1930s baseball, not only baseball, but the what life was like back in the 1930s. This is kind of where we ended off. So back to real life.
Right. So Dillinger's first stint in prison with the other bank robbers he met taught him the Lamb technique, which is named for its inventor, Herman Lamb. He was a German immigrant who joined the Prussian army at a young age, but he was kicked out for cheating at cards. Disgraced, he immigrates to the United States shortly after World War I, where he found himself a career as a stick-up kid, holding up stores and small businesses, just like John Dillinger started out, and it landed him in jail pretty quickly. However, while he was inside, he realized that robbing businesses, especially the biggest businesses to rob, banks, would be a lot easier if he spent more time planning and preparing. That's how they did it in the Prussian army, after all.
Okay.
So,
next Lamb.
Herman Lamb invented most modern bank robbery techniques, almost all of which you've seen in a heist movie today. First was the practice of casing banks, where he'd scout out the targets, draw up floor plans where the key locations were, like the vault and the bank tellers. He'd plan escape routes meticulously around the target bank, mapping out all the nearby streets. He'd even ensure that he had a high-powered car waiting with the engine on. Then he'd even hire drivers with either bootlegging or auto racing experience to be his wheelman. In fact, he designated roles for his crew, such as the lookout, the vault man, the lobby man. Heists were rehearsed in mock-ups he'd build in warehouses, and each crew member was given a specific task and a strict amount of time to do it in. You have 45 seconds to put as much money in the vault bags as you can. After 45 seconds, you leave the rest of the money and you get going, because that's all the time we got. He made sure to take the time to get the right men for the job.
Yeah, the flavor of the period. It's nice to have kind of that flavor of the period. Again, we want to immerse ourselves into the 30s as we prepare for this PTCS. So wonderful bit of facts there. Now, I got to ask, I'm not a linguistic expert, but when they say he's on the lamb, is it named after this guy?
I have heard conflicting reports on this. Some have said no, some have said yes. On the lamb is a reference to Herman Lamb. Now, the practice did come into prominence in the 30s because bank robberies and such high-profile violent crimes was becoming so much more common. Remember, this was the Great Depression. Even though FDR had recently been elected, the recovery hadn't happened yet, and there were still plenty of people very desperate to make money for themselves. So if you wanted to, you could be a bank robber, and what you would do is go out on the lam and hide out a few states over while the heat's off.
All right, let's talk about pitchers.
Okay. The ratings are very similar to modern era, but we must respect the fact that we are playing in Forbes Field and it's very short left field wall for righties to hit home runs over. So the recommended shape is PBABIP first, home run rate versus right, control, home run rate versus left, then stuff. Because of so many righty batters expected and hitting home runs by righties is the best way to score, I'm recommending forward split right-handed pitchers and reverse split left-handed pitchers. You've got to do.
Okay, can you explain that to the new people? What you mean by forward split and
Correct.
reverse split?
Each pitcher is not actually one pitcher. He's two. He has overall ratings that you can actually ignore. What most importantly matter are his ratings versus lefties and his ratings versus righties. And whichever batter he's facing is what you're going to get. Remember, a switch hitter always lines up the opposite handedness of the pitcher. So a right-handed pitcher facing a switch hitter will use his versus left-handed batter's ratings. Now, for this tournament, you have to do everything you can to prevent home runs into Kiner's corner. However, it's still modern era, and PBABIP is still king. PBABIP is the most important pitcher rating. It is going to matter for preventing runs and anything else. Walks are also very common, just as common as modern, so make sure you bring control. But we're not going to really strike many people out. Stuff is not really a high priority, and there's going to be much fewer home runs from left-handed hitters, so we don't need to worry too much about preventing home runs from lefties. Take a look at Mike Timlin, who's shown right here. Excellent PBABIP, but those splits are super wide, and he will be fielding a home run rate versus righties of only 28. I think he's going to get crushed in Forbes Field. I'm recommending that you not take Mike Timlin.
Okay. So, again, just in general, you're looking for the control, you're looking for the pitcher BABIP. Home runs, not as important, but still, you don't want it too low, like the Mike Timlin card. And
but remember that home runs versus righties is much more important than home runs versus lefties.
Right.
And this is brand new. Normally, we wouldn't differentiate left and right for home run rating in tournaments because we've always played in Perfect Park before.
Yeah, a very good point. The park is going to matter here. So your home run rate, ballpark, pardon the pun, you want maybe like 80 or above the minimum?
As much as you can, especially for almost every pitcher. I wouldn't say sort by home run rate, but you really need to bring it because every home run rate versus right. Because either A, you're going to be hitting or you're going to be facing right-handed batters who can hit home runs and you need to stop them, or you're going to be facing faster left-handed batters who are less likely to hit home runs and you need PBABIP to stop them.
Now, to counter, to even micromanage even a bit more, you mentioned that left-handed batters are going to hit more, gap power. So to prevent that with your pitchers, are you looking for higher control then against the lefties?
We're looking for higher PBABIP. Control prevents walks, but it's not really going to do much to prevent balls in play of going really far. Okay. In modern era, we can also bring stuff to strike them out. We can't do that in 1934. Stuff is not really going to strike anybody out. So PBABIP is what we would bring to defeat the lefty triples hitters.
Okay, and then really good defense for your second base, your shortstop, error prevention for your left fielder. Those are some of the keys that you've mentioned so far.
There's a saying where pitching is the tip of the spear for run prevention, and the gloves are the rest of the spear. Well, in 1934, the tip is a lot smaller and the rest of the spear is a lot larger. Play defense at every position except catcher and DH. Okay, so moving on. We have some flexibility here. Far and away, but the best way to score, though, is a home run from a right-handed batter. So what you can do is run a forward split righty, meaning a right-handed pitcher who is noticeably better against right-handed hitters to take these righty batters on. You can still run a flat split starter if you want, or a reverse split lefty that can still bring a good home run rate versus righties to bear. So Vern Law here would not be a good idea to bring in a lot of perfect park tournaments. Lefties will just do so much better against him. But because we're playing in Forbes, and so much of the danger is from right-handed batters with home run rate power, Vern Law might find a spot here.
Okay, so here's that example of that reverse split. But again, when the game brings the batters in, they're going to bring in the lefty batters. So
Correct.
is this pitcher BABIP good enough if they're going to bring in their lefties to face Vern Law?
That's going to be a tough point. If the lower the pitcher BABIP is, that matters more to stopping a ball in play than the batter's gloves do. If it's low, you're just going to have to get lucky to be able to prevent those balls from falling in. So this is the trade-off that you're going to have to live with. You want to bring the righties, okay? You want big splits or small splits. If you want to bring lefties, okay, reverse splits are probably best. You can even bring one for lefties to try and counter those lefty triples hitters if you think you're going to see them. There's a little bit more depth to this, and we'll be mentioning more of it in a moment.
Okay.
For the hitters, this is the first time I've ever recommended that you change different ratings depending on the handedness of the batter. Yes, what Red Sixers fan is saying is correct. Catcher abilities adds the ability to get strikeouts just more than anything else. I mean, you might turn the 1-2-3 double play as a catcher, but don't worry about that too much. Catcher ability is there for getting strikeouts. But in 1934, there just aren't that many strikeouts to be had, so catcher ability is not as important. It does prevent walks a little, but not enough to overcome his weight as a batter. So that's why I'm recommending to bring bats at catcher for this tournament. What should the shape of those bats be? Right-handed batters should put power first, BABIP second, eye and gap after that, and then there's a long distance between contact and strikeouts. Lefties, power moves down the list a little bit. They've got to have BABIP and eye, gap to hit triples, and then still power, because BABIP plus power can still generate doubles. Doubles are good. And then finally, contact and Ks are down the list. Remember, it's modern era with fewer strikeouts. But Forbes Field rewards the right-handed hitters who can hit long balls. They'll score more than anything else. With the righty pitchers we're likely to face, a reverse split righty can pay off here. On the right, you can see Devin Mesoraco. He's a right-handed hitter. Normally, you would see better ratings against lefties, but his power gets significantly better against righties. You might want to think about bringing a shape like Devin Mesoraco, a right-handed batter who can hit better against the right-handed pitchers he's likely to face. But as you mentioned in the last slide, if the splits are wide enough, there may be some money to be made hitting for average and triples from a left-handed batter.
Okay. And that's your call as a manager. Which way do you want to play it? You got to make your strategic decisions. Mr. Black giving you kind of card shapes, giving you the most important criteria to look for in those card shapes. Again, the Jeff Mathis, not as critical as a card in these tournaments because of the park, because of the era, more importantly. And a card like Devin Mesoraco might be a little bit more beneficial. So, yeah, excellent stuff here. Back to Lamb.
We skipped the slide. Go back one more.
One more?
There we go. You think we had to talk about Jeff Mathis at least once?
Come on. Yeah.
Now, about defense, there are many more balls in play just because there are fewer home runs and fewer strikeouts. That's why we play defense at every position except pitcher, DH, and catcher. The pitcher will still make more errors. However, I can't bring you to say that you should prioritize your pitcher's fielding over his pitching. But in modern era, it's common to hide a glove at third base or maybe even in right field. I wouldn't recommend you do that here. They're going to get a lot more action, especially the third baseman, because of all the righty batters they're going to face. Also, errors are up across the board. Many many times you just don't really look at outfield or infield error at your cards. You look at range, maybe double play for a second baseman or arm for a shortstop. Take a look at errors this time, especially in the middle infielder and the left fielder. Remember, in Forbes Field, the left fielder has to cover Kiner's corner. He's going to get a lot of balls hit towards him. So make sure he has the glove to catch them and make your pitcher look good. As mentioned, though, catcherability just isn't as important as it is in modern era. Since Forbes Field prefers righty power hitters, righty singles hitters like Jeff Mathis, who are good defensive catchers, I just don't think he fits. I'm surprised, but I think we found a tournament category where Jeff Mathis doesn't play. And in case you're wondering, those are the two cards, Mike Timlin and Jeff Mathis. I'm recommending you don't play either of them.
Okay. Again, caps are not much of an issue in this cycle because there's only one cap tournament.
Correct. The only cap tournament is the wild card, and I'm excited because it's a medium 11.5. So I think I have a chance to do well in that tournament. Okay. But all the rest of them are opens, which is going to affect the roster construction. We'll mention that in a few minutes.
Okay. Can you throw out a name? Are you willing to throw out a name of a catcher in that cap tournament that you've come across that kind of fits the mold that you're looking for? If it's not Jeff Mathis at a 50?
Catcher in the caps? Well, I think it's a diamond cap. So let me see here. Sort by power versus right-handed pitchers, right? You might want to take a look at future legend Francisco Alvarez.
Okay. And Astor's pointing out it's a silver floor, so Mathis isn't eligible.
The cap is that Mathis would be eligible for iron tournaments, or also all the other opens too. I still don't think you should play him though.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned, let me bring it up on my screen here.
Future legend, 96 overall, Francisco Alvarez.
Okay, Alvarez.
So in a cap catcher ability, you'd expect more than that from a diamond catcher. But look at that power. He's right-handed. He's got power and eye. He's going to score runs for you.
Okay. So you're willing in a cap tournament to spend that much? Or is this just for opens you're talking about?
I'm probably willing to do both. Now, when I spend points in a cap tournament, I expect the card to be able to hit. If I'm going to save money, that's where I put my gloves. I usually don't pay for shortstops or center fielders because defense is cheaper than bats in a cap.
Okay. All right. Well, let's continue on and give us a little bit more history.
So Herman Lamb was probably, the Lamb gang was the most successful bank robbers in the era, with plenty of famous bank robbers. Unfortunately, he's not as famous. I think the reason why is because he's a German immigrant, and it's so close to World War I. No one wanted to finance a movie about a German robbing Americans right after World War I. Otherwise, he'd be a lot more famous. Now, they stayed in action for over a decade. Some estimates placing their take over $1 million in the 1930s, which would be about $20 million today. And they did it one vault at a time. However, as bank robberies became more and more common, vigilantes started to pop up alongside police in an attempt to resist the robbers. Remember, the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, hadn't been created yet. So if the local bank got robbed, the local citizens lost their money too. Several members of Lamb's crew were lost to firefights to both law enforcement officers and vigilantes. But he was always able to replace them because he knew exactly what size team he'd need.
Okay. Well, before we go on to the next slide here, because I know we have a bunch of new people coming in from the raid. So again, thank you, Nersha And thank you, Nasbase, for those raids. But before we go on, just a kind of a little recap of what we're doing on this stream today. We're talking strategy for the PTCS coming up next Saturday. Again, looking at how the ballpark factors and how the era are going to impact the cards shapes that you want to look for. We're not here to tell you the cards to take, the specific cards, because tomorrow 350 new cards are about to come out. So the formats, again, as was mentioned last Thursday, here you see all the different formats for next Saturday's tournament. 1952, playing in Pittsburgh. 1934 is the run environment. And these are the formats that are going to take most of them really wide open in terms of the cards that you can use for that format, of course, with the specific level. And also mention some of the names that you're going to see in packs tomorrow. If you missed it, Cepeda, Kane, Sane, Garvey, Pie Trainer. We've got Paul Hines coming
tomorrow. I'm
excited
for Doe Drebeck. I wonder if he's going to be really fat on his card.
Yes, Eddie Plank, Chris Speaker. Remember, no perfects coming out tomorrow. So these are not likely to be the peak cards for a lot of these players because, someone like Chris Speaker, I would expect a perfect at some point. Same with Roy Halladay. But still some really good names coming, and some of the more interesting names coming in tomorrow's packs: Snuffy, Ham, Garland, Kitty, Kid. Those kind of names we'll see in packs tomorrow too. So again, if you're earning packs today from watching this stream, if you're going to watch Dish do the World Series later, maybe save your packs and open them up tomorrow. But again, we're here to talk about how you can strategize and do better, hopefully, in your PTCS tournament. Okay, let's go back to the slides here. And the next one.
Okay. Rebirth era is a 3 starting pitcher era, and they can go the distance quite easily if their stamina is blue. Even then, they still might need relievers. If their stamina is low, typically about 75 or lower. Relievers were not unheard of. However, you still don't need a lot of pitcher depth. 1 reliever is usually all you need to finish a game. I recommend 18 batters and 8 pitchers to make your 26-man roster. Now, relievers aren't common, but they do get used. Most of these tournaments are opens, so feel free to bring a couple. But make sure he's ordered to go in if the starting pitcher's tired. Either set a pitch count on the starting pitcher, or you make sure you give him the stopper roll, or use the slider bars to make sure that he goes in when you want to use him. Because the AI manager in these old-time tournaments often leaves the starter in when he's in a jam in the ninth because he's got another 3 innings left in him. So grab your AI manager by the scruff of the neck and make sure he uses the relievers that you give to him. Now, I recommended earlier for righties to bring power hitters and for lefties to bring triples hitters. You have 18 slots to fill. It's an open, so you don't have to pay for any of them. You might as well bring both.
Okay, and I think we're gonna you are gonna focus a little bit more on sliders a little bit later, if I remember the slides correctly.
It is mentioned, yes. However, I kind of have to cop out because remember, 1934 is a lot like 2010 with the slider bars. Although I do think I have something interesting about the slider bars in there that you guys all might want to hear.
Okay, so just before we have to hit our next break here with the pitchers, you talked about setting a pitch count. How, again, for those newer players or those not familiar with pitch counts, how do you judge the pitch count for that era based on the pitcher's stamina?
Unfortunately, the variance is stupidly high. In the short term, you have no idea how many pitches it's going to take to face one batter. However, there is a little bit in there that makes it easier to see. Pitchers with more stuff and less control throw more pitches. Pitchers with less stuff and more control throw less pitches because those balls are much more likely to be put into play faster, and the at-bat ends sooner. So if you're running lots of stuff, little control, he's going to need more stamina simply because he needs more pitches to get through every batter. If you are running low stuff, high control, which is what I'm recommending for this tournament, stamina is less of a problem because he's much more likely to get through the batters quickly. I mean, say what you want about Mike Tinlin, we mentioned earlier. I do play him in Modern because the man's got a knack for turning in 2-inning, 13-pitch performances.
All right. Break up, guys. We will be back in a couple minutes and finish off our discussion about creating your roster for the PTCS. Stay tuned. Back in 2 minutes. All right, so we are back here to talk PTCS format with Mr. Black. And a quick little shout out here. Thank you to the recent follows from today. Peak 459. Good to have you here. Coach Ruffy _alt_1. Thank you for the follow. Escadillo. We've got Cactus. We've got Bonaldi _OOTP. And we have a BB Robbie 2. Thank you. Also, shout out for those streamers that came in today. We've got Naspace that came in with his community, Nersha Banco coming in, and just recently Cavacom. Cavacom is in the house. Thank you, Cavacom, for coming over. And a special shout out to Cubs fan Steve, Cubs fan 23 Steve, resubbing up. 10-month, my longest subscriber, Cubs fan Steve. We'll talk more about that tomorrow on my regular stream. I am Laptop Hound doing a special Sunday stream because Mr. Black couldn't make it on Monday or Tuesday this week. And I really wanted him on because he's, again, wealth of information, put together some amazing slides and content for you guys. So I wanted to have him on in person. And today was the best day to do that. So thank you so much, Mr. Black, for coming in. When we left off, you were talking about stamina and pitchers. Now, just so I'm clear again, because I would think logically in real life, if someone has high stuff and low control, he gets worn out faster because it's a bigger toll on his arm.
Correct.
Are you saying it's the opposite, or are you saying that's the way it is?
That's correct. The more pitches you need to deal with one batter means you will not be able to get as deep into the game as someone who needs less pitches. That's why Greg Maddux was never a strikeout specialist. But the phrase we use for completing game with less than 100 pitches is throwing a Maddux, because he explicitly pitched to contact and got outs quickly early in at bats. He made the batter swing and he got him out.
Okay. And so if someone has a, stamina of, let's say, of 100, and we're pitching in this environment in 1934, his pitch count can be, probably like 150, 160 for this era.
I still think 140 is as much as I'd like to go, because unfortunately it's okay to be tired, but not in a close game in the ninth. So I do want my guys out of there if it gets close. Now, 140 pitches is a lot. And if you're going to be a low stuff, high control, high BABIP pitcher, which is what I'm recommending, you're unlikely to even get that high. You can very easily go through the whole game in, say, 115 pitches. Not unreasonable at all.
And however, that's where you want that stopper coming in, a really, rested stopper coming in at that point.
Correct, because if it goes bad, unfortunately, the most important at-bat of a baseball game is usually in the late innings. Then you have a choice between a fresh reliever and a tired starter. You need to succeed in this at-bat because it's the most important at-bat of the game. That's why I lean on my relievers a lot, and I do recommend you lean on them some, because it's still 1934. You don't need as many relievers as you do in Modern.
And as Mr. Black mentioned, 18 batters, recommending 18 pitchers, 3 of them being your starters, and then you got 5 in the pen, your better ones as your stoppers in key situations. And that's different for a lot of you playing this game, because a lot of you play in the modern environment where you have your 5 starters and your 6, 7, or 8 in the bullpen. This is going to be different for you. It's going to require you to think the game a little bit differently for that period and for that park that you're playing in. Okay, slider bars.
Okay, as I said, I'm kind of got a wuss out here. There isn't that much of a difference between 1934 and Modern. And the big difference that there is, less strikeouts, less home runs, doesn't have anything to do with the slider bars. So they're going to be very similar than the way you play in 2010. I recommend you don't steal. I recommend you don't bunt. I recommend you don't try to make something happen out of nothing. Be patient and wait for the home run to land or the triple to come in. Now, with your pinch hitting and hooks, look at your bats, how many of them you want to use. Then again, it's an open. You will probably able to have all the bats you need. So you probably want to set your pinch hitting high and be willing to do it early. I remember saying once, I'm willing to pinch hit in the third inning, and you were kind of surprised by that. If I run into somebody weird trying to pull their pitcher early in 1934 and switch the other side, I'm ready for that because I can switch two in the fourth. That's fine. I'm ready for that. Now, we're going to talk about pitcher deployment in a bit, but I did find something cool about slider bars since the last time we talked, and I'll be happy to share it with you now.
All right. I'm just going to bring up because last time you were on for the last PTCS, we kind of went through sliders and, ballpark wise, it was a different ballpark. I can't remember the era for the last PTCS, but this is kind of what you recommended. And I'm just wondering if, what you see here, if it's still kind of appropriate for this era, or if there's any kind of major things that people should be focusing on based on what we see in sliders.
I would switch pitch around to higher, probably about +3. I plan to set intentional walks to max, +5.
Wow, max on intentional walks?
Yep, you're about to find out why. Okay. So hold runners. You probably don't need to hold runners. There's even fewer stolen base attempts in 1934. And if they're stealing bases on you, even if your catcher's bad, that's still probably a good thing because it means the manager didn't get the memo and doesn't know how to play in 1934. So that's good. Infield in, that's the way you should leave it. Corners in is fine. Guard lines, in that middle looks fine. Hook starting pitchers, the only thing is you don't want that to be max in the ninth or late in the game. Because, as I said, you have a choice. You want to play in the most important at-bat a tired starter or a fresh reliever. If it's set to max in the ninth, then means you're married to the starter, and whatever happens, happens. Okay. So lefty-righty pitching matchups, it's just the same. How good do you think your batters are? Also, how splitty do you believe your opponent's pitchers are? If they're going to play Vern Law from earlier, who's a very wide split right-handed pitcher, you should probably be willing to pinch hit against him and throw your lefties in. Now, then again, if you're facing a narrow split or reverse split pitcher, pinch hitting is not going to be effective. Your AI manager does not really understand the concept of reverse splits, so a batter with reverse splits will not be used correctly as a pinch hitter. He'll put him in on the wrong side when he's not better, where he's worse.
Okay, so one thing that probably is important in a tournament like this is that micromanaging. So for those bottom areas, once you're in the tournament and you see who your opposition is, that's where you come into the game, right? And look at what pitchers they're using, because they're only using 3 and likely, and that's where you can kind of decide how often you want to bring hitters in.
Correct. Now, also you see typically in most open tournaments that all the pitching rotation is the same side. And the idea is to tire out that opponent's platoon bats on that side. So the 5th pitcher and the 1st pitcher second time around has an easier time of it in the series. That's not really going to be a thing here because everyone's going to have lots of bats. They'll be able to play no problem. And especially they're both going to be good. Lefty triples hitters, righty homers hitters. So tiring the opponent out by playing the same side is not going to be as effective. I recommend you pick your pitchers on the pitch quality and not try to do any shenanigans by putting all of the rotation the same side.
All right. And how about on the left-hand side here, Mr. Black? Fatigue in that period?
In 1934, I think the use of openers doesn't even exist. I don't even think they let you touch it. So I hate defensive substitutions because that's just a personal thing of mine. Get this nonsense on my face. If I lose the lead, I need my bats in there to get the lead back. So I almost never play with defensive substitutions. Position player pinch hit starting in. You might want to set it earlier. I set it to 3rd. But then again, you have to realize whether or not your opponent is going to do any pitcher shenanigans on you. Because if he doesn't, and he just lets his right-handed pitcher go 9 innings, then you probably do want to play with the same lineup you started with. So default batting bench, typically from what I've been noticing in modern tournaments recently, I can't confirm this is 1934 because I don't have enough data for 1934. There's not really a nice spammable for that I can do. Most hitters can play just fine for 4 straight games. The 5th game is when they finally start crossing the line to about 90%. They're still fine. They can still bat in the 5th game. In the 6th game, they're starting to teeter. They're going to be between 70s and 80s. Your batting fatigue affects your defense much more than it affects your ability to bat. So if you have a tired DH, tell him to quit his whining and go in there and bat. If you have a tired shortstop, you must consider benching him just because he's not going to be able to do his job. And if you play with no shortstop, you're going to give up plenty of runs anyway, no matter how good your pitcher is. Finally, if you let the batters play 6 straight games and play game 7, good luck. You're probably going to give up double-digit runs no matter what you do because defense is important and you're not playing with it. So what I've started to do in 7-game series is to set my batting bench to 94. I want my batters to play 4 games and then start their pit stop in game 5. In modern era, I only typically have 14 batters. I only have 4 non-catchers to go in there and replace somebody. So it takes me 2 games to replace the rest of my team besides my catchers. 4. In 1934, you're going to have a whole lineup. You'll be able to bench the entire lineup and rest them all on the same day if you so choose. So in this regard, I would respect you ride your batters harder. I would set it to 90, maybe even 85. It's much easier to do a full pit stop, rest every person on your team in 1 game. So make sure you use the right guys more often and don't over-rest them.
Very interesting, because you did say you should have 18 batters, so that does give you the opportunity to do pretty much a full-scale lineup change in this kind of situation. And for relief pitchers, is that really even a thing in this era?
I wouldn't worry about reliever bench fatigue. They aren't going to be used in most games unless it's close, because most of the starters can do the job just fine. Even then, they pitch like 2 innings and their fitness only goes down by 15%. Now, remember, there are exponential losses when you pitch multiple days in a row. If the same pitcher is used multiple days in a row, then you're going to beat them up, and you are going to have to rest them after that. That's why I mentioned in the past to try to bring 2 relievers per role that you intend to use. Now, there's still going to be a lot less stress on the relievers here because it's 1934. You may even want to consider bringing other starters as opposed to true relievers to be your bullpen. Because if you find a guy who doesn't get the memo and he's going to be playing all lefty power hitters, you might want to play your lefty pitcher for that game, even though he's not starting normally.
I saw you post in the Discord yesterday. I mean, not that it'll happen here, but it's a possibility that 1 game box score that went 27 innings.
27 innings, right?
Yeah. And, if that ever happened in this kind of situation, and that was, I think, a 0-0 tie going to the 26th or 27th inning.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Unfortunately, that was a tournament lab game, so it was in 1909, and they did go very far. Don Mossy took the loss on 70 pitches in the 27th inning. I think he entered in the 23rd.
Crazy. Yeah, this game, sometimes the results that it can produce. Welcome again, everyone in. If you're joining late, we are here with Mr. Black looking at the PTCS coming up next Saturday. Thanks again to the raiders and the followers and subscribers. And we will give away 5 packs at the end of the show today, coming up in about a half an hour. And don't forget to check out Dishnet. He will be on probably within 2 or 3 hours for the PEL finals. And a huge clap. Not thank you, but a shout out to Heath Dog, one of the longtime viewers of the channel, in the final 4 of Perfect League. Big
Go get him.
Clap.
Win that plastic brick.
Win that green brick. Yes. I have to ask, Heath, who are you facing in the semifinals? Because always curious. So chance that we could see Heath Dog's day trippers going up against the other side in the Dishnet presentation today. So yeah, even one of the emotes, Heath, for subscribing for as long as he did, got to pick out an emote, and he picked Doc Ellis, an animated or a
Oh, that's
cartoony.
a classic YouTube video. Doc
Yeah.
Ellis and the LSD no. Unfortunately, it was against my Padres, but yeah, excellent viewing.
Yeah. And he's doing it on duct tape and super glue and anything he has available. He is the multi-purpose Swiss Army knife of teams. There are not a lot of the LEs and meta that are playing out there. So definitely an underdog that's heading into the Final Four. Congratulations. All right. So let's move on.
So here's the thing I was going to say about learning about the slider bars. So I put some effort into it and I tried to check it for a while, and I have noticed about the international walk slider that it's pretty good. It's not great, but it's good. You need a few things to happen first for the intentional walk to be considered. A runner must be in scoring position, and first base must be open. If neither of those things are true, your pitcher will not intentionally walk the bat. All the data points I had over 50. These two were true in every case. The earliest I found them doing it was in the 4th inning. Usually it was in the 7th or 8th. It looks like the leverage index of the at-bat is considered, but you do need those two. Runner must be in scoring position. First base must be open. And from there, the game looks at the batter on deck and compares him to the batter at bat. If the next guy up is a noticeably weaker hitter, and it appears to care about the actual ratings much more than the handedness, your pitcher will put him on and pitch to the next guy. I've seen it walk switch to switch. I've seen it walk a left-handed hitter into a switch hitter because the switch hitter was a worse matchup was a worse batter against my pitcher. It's pretty good like that. I was impressed. But unfortunately, some weird stuff does happen. On the next slide.
Okay. And again, we are talking 1934.
So I set the slider to max, all situations, and then just charted some game logs for about a week. I kept a composite stat line of the next guy up after intentional walk, and that batter was awful. He must have slashed about 150, 200, 250. So the intentional walk really seemed to work in that regard. But when I looked at the game logs more closely, it did have a few AI moments that I wasn't very happy with. It doesn't seem to take the current batter into consideration much, just how much better is he than the next batter. I saw it walk a 40 overall live Luke Williams, who was a bad hitter, to pitch to a 40 overall live Austin Hedges twice, who's an awful hitter. Now, okay, it still worked out. Austin Hedges still got out, I think, both times. But when you're facing a bad hitter, you should pitch to the bad hitter, even if there's a worse hitter on deck. Get the bad hitter out, right? Okay. And then secondly, this only happened once, but I thought it was so very funny. I had a right-handed pitcher on the mound in the live tournament. It walked live overall Freddie Freeman to pitch to 100 overall live Judge. Then it brought in a new pitcher in between the two at-bats. And since I had my pitching matchup slider to don't care, it brought in a lefty to face Judge. And it threw away the advantage that it walked Freeman for. Fortunately, it had a happy ending. Judge struck out. So in a heavy home run hitting meta, as this tournament is going to be, this slider might be a lot of help.
Okay, so pay attention to your international walk or international. Yeah,
you got to understand, Canadians and Americans walk different ways. It's like Canadian football. It's just a little different.
Exactly. You know? It's international because, hey, we're two separate countries. So check out that international walk slider. And hopefully none of this weirdness will happen to you. Just OOTP doing OOTP things sometimes. All right, the bullpen.
Okay. It's a 3 starting pitcher era, and almost all of them can go the distance unless they have low stamina. You're going to just have to decide. You're going to let the starting pitchers pitch, or you can try to do something creative with your bullpen. Like one option is the long opener or the 18 batters face 60 pitch limit on your starter. And then you have a long relief, middle relief reliever go in afterwards, typically with the opposite handedness. and force your opponent to pinch hit against you. I mentioned I pinch hit in the third for this reason. This is not that common, but it does exist, especially in the later rounds of a PTCS day. If you're going to micro in OOTP, you do it on the day of the Perfect Team Championship Series. Even better, though, this isn't modern where your pitchers are going to be beaten to hell. Like if you play 7 games, almost all of them are red. So you do have some freedom of which ones you want to bring and which ones you want to use. And if you want to get complicated, you can do that. Just remember, though, the other team has enough roster slots to bring bats to play in any situation. The dirty secret here is to look at your opponent's box scores from previous games. Try to solve the puzzle. How much does he pinch hit, and in what situations does he pinch hit? You see no pinch hitters until the 7th, and then you check the pitcher list and that a new pitcher came in the 7th and he's on the opposite handedness. Okay, he's pinch hitting in the 7th. Stuff like that. For the most part, I wouldn't recommend you do this in quick tournaments ever. Even in dailies, it's probably not worth your time. But this is the big day, and you need to be able to squeeze all the value you can to try to set your opponent up to fail by having him have the wrong batters in against your pitcher.
All right, a little bit more history as we get towards the end of our presentation here. Back to Herman Lamb.
Yeah, so unfortunately, when you're a successful criminal, you don't know when to quit. I mean, you kind of have to walk away at one point if you actually intend to keep all the money that you've stolen. Unfortunately, Lamb didn't do that. On December 16th, 1930, Lamb and his gang hits a bank in Clinton, Indiana. They successfully removed about $15,000 from the vault, and they hopped into their getaway car ready and waiting. As they got in, their wheelman noticed a barber coming out of his shop with a shotgun. The driver panics, makes a dangerous U-turn and clips a curb and pops the tire of their getaway car. So what happens after this has got to be one of the worst strings of luck in criminal history. Lamb's gang was able to fight their way onto the street and hijack another car. When they floored the gas pedal, it would only go 35 miles an hour. It turns out that car's owner had an elderly father they didn't trust to drive safely, so he had a governor installed on the engine. They had to abandon that car, and they were able to get a hold of a truck, and it had no water in the radiator. A few blocks later, it overheated. They ditched the overheating truck, and they get a fourth car, and it's got less than a gallon of gas in the tank. Completely unable to escape, Lamb's gang holds up in a warehouse in a town nearby, surrounded by over 200 law enforcement officers and vigilantes. With no way out, Herman Lamb saw no reason to go back to prison like he did when he was younger, and most of the gang that was still alive decided to take their own lives, including Herman Lamb. Only 2 members of Lamb's gang survived, successfully surrendering to authorities and being arrested.
Life.
I mean, now this guy is a violent criminal. I'm not making any excuses for him. He deserved his fate. But you can't feel a little sorry. I mean, this is the guy who invented planning and preparation. He was so good at it that he was the best in the world at what he did, and he was still brought down by things he could not plan or prepare for. Just the random timing of a vigilante with a shotgun, panicky driver, the car owner's reckless driving father, poor vehicle maintenance among the townsfolk of Indiana. All these things he couldn't be ready for, and that's what brought him down.
Yeah. So there is what you guys are playing in on Saturday, the environments in America, 1934, gangsters, bank robbers, people going on the lam. But here are your best laid plans.
So understand this. There's nothing you can do about bad luck. Even if you've been trying hard for a month or so to make the tournament, there's going to be 127 players in every category who are going to come up short. I wish I can tell you there was a way around this. I wish I can tell you there was a slider bar setting or a card to play. There isn't. If the random number generator decides that you lose today, you're going to lose today. Try to sit back and enjoy it. This is the life we chose. If we wanted to play a game without luck, we can all go play chess. Instead, we choose to play baseball. All I can say is that I hope you have good luck, or at the very least, better luck than Herman Lamb did on his last heist. Only 2 members of his gang survived that shootout at the end. Their names were Walter Dietrich and James Clark. Now, they had committed crimes all over the Midwest, so they were extradited to Indiana to face trial, found guilty, and sentenced to life. They rode the prison bus to what was to be their last home in the town of Michigan City, Indiana, and once inside, they met a young misanthrope named John Dillinger.
That's a story for another time. John Dillinger.
Good luck on Saturday.
In winning your Honus Wagner first place card, Dustin Pedroia for second place, and I showed you the other cards that are up for grabs. Again, I think OOTP did a really good job on these PTCS cards. They all seem to be playable in some sort of format, and I think whichever card you do happen to win, if you happen to win in the money rounds, then I think you should be a happy camper winning one of those cards. All right, before I let you go, because let's try and get a little bit of practical advice in here. I know you said you wouldn't, pick certain cards or certain players because so many cards are coming out tomorrow, but just so we can kind of get in the habit of what to look for and how to approach looking for cards when they are released. Let's say I'm in bronze. Here's my bronze tournament team in the modern era. Of course, I'm not going to use the exact same lineup because it's a different time period, different park. If I'm looking for, first of all, pitchers, and I go to my pitchers here and I see all my different stats, how should people search for a pitcher? How should they look for them on the pitchers they currently have? What is the step process you would give?
I do see a good one already that I would recommend. Shiggy Hasegawa. We'll go ahead and look at him. Okay. No stuff to speak of. He's not going to strike anybody out. That's fine. You're not going to strike out anybody in 1934 anyway. Control is pretty good. He's going to prevent a lot of walks. PBABIP is pretty good. And his home run rates are even better. You've got to be able to stop home runs into Kiner's corner in left field. You have to be able to prevent home runs from right-handed batters. So Shiggy Hasegawa isn't a starter. He's a reliever. But I would play him in bronze. I think it's a great shape for this particular type of pitchers.
And Red Sixers fans wondering when does the Lamb LE card come out?
I'm actually surprised no one brought up the Herman Long, and I'd have to say, not the bronze shortstop. This is a bank robber. This is some guy.
Yes. All right. Now, he has got a stamina of 25. Would you even consider using him as a starting pitcher because his ratings are so good?
If you used him as a starting pitcher, the minimum you can tell a starting pitcher to be taken out 60 pitches, 18 batters. This is usually about 4 innings pitched. 25 stamina. He's going to run out of gas a little before that. It's going to be really shaky in the 4th inning itself as he tries to get over it. But if you want to switch sides and you want to have a lefty come in after him, you can use him as a opener in the fact that he's a starter that only goes 4 innings.
With a pitch count of around 50?
60 and 18 batters faced.
60 and 18 batters faced. Okay,
so good. You can't do it you can't make it lower than that. If a pitcher pitches lower than that, he must have gotten shelled.
Okay, so there's one, and let's look for one more pitcher. This time, let's kind of go to the card shop, and let's say I'm in bronze, so my maximum is a 69 for bronze. I'm looking for pitchers. How would you recommend people sort to look for the best one?
I'm going to sort by movement versus right. Okay, let's at least talk about this guy. I don't think I recommend him, but he's worth looking at. Henderson Alvarez III. Okay. Right-handed pitcher, very slitty, ain't going to strike anybody out just like Shiggy. He's got less control, but his movement profile is very different. He is going to stop home runs in Kiner's corner. Hopefully. At least he should. It's got one of the best home runs versus righty in the game. But remember, there are a few strikeouts, fewer home runs, more balls in play. I don't think that PBABIP is that great. And I would look for better than 63 when picking my starter here. I love that home run rate versus right. Just not enough PBABIP. So I'm trying to remind you that PBABIP is still king. It's just that home run rate versus right is much more important in Forbes Field.
Okay.
Bob Walk's pretty good pick. Same shape and much more P BABIP. He's also splitty and the way we want. He's better against righties. That's why I was recommending your left-handed batters be triples hitters, because they'll still be able to hit the low stuff, high control guys.
Okay. And how about a guy like Ray King?
I'm starting to think his control is a little shaky. There's going to be just as many walks as there are in modern, and since everyone's trying to hit home runs over the left field fence, one bad pitch is going to ruin Ray King's day. He's also a reliever. Relievers are not allowed to give up home runs. That's the best way to lose a game.
And it's the wrong split.
I'm sorry. So he, even with the home run prevention of 106, he's still going to give up some. So if he's going to give up some, I would like it to be with the bases empty. He's going to give away a few walks with that 43 control, though.
How about in terms of hitters now? When people are approaching starting tomorrow, the hitters that they should be selecting, probably power versus right-handed, left-handed pitchers, right-handed pitchers. What should be?
Well, I would recommend looking at power versus right or gap power versus right for a left-handed batter. So Joey Gallo over there, he's still going to hit some home runs. He's still going to draw some walks. He might even strike out because his avoid K's rating is not low. It's abysmal. But the fact that he's a lefty does hurt in Forbes Field. That power is nowhere near as good as it is.
Okay. So Gallo, kind of an iffy one there. How about a guy like Gorman Thomas?
This is much more what I'm looking at because he's a righty. So that 117 power against lefties or 107 against righties is going to do a lot more work for me than if he was a left-handed batter, just for the park factors. He's also got eye, which is good. Maybe a little bit more gap power would be helpful, but it's a bronze card. Let's not be too picky. So I think Gorman Thomas is a pretty good card for you.
But only as a DH, right?
Absolutely. Do not let that glove out in the center. There's going to be the gloves are even more important in 1934 than there are in modern. I'm only recommending you punt on defense for DH and catcher.
Okay. Now, looking at a couple of the LE cards, card like Kevin Stalker, you said it's shortstop, second base, you want high defense. Is this defense good enough for that era?
It's an open, so you don't need to have the best defensive. You don't need to save money on defenders, so you don't need to bring Dow Maxfield like you usually would in a cap. So you can play Kevin Stalker, but here's my issue. He's a switch hitter. Against lefties, which there are not going to be many of, he will be able to hit pretty well, except his speed is not that high. His gap power is only 76. I'm not going to get a lot of triples or doubles out of him, although I will get singles out of him. Okay, but I need more than singles to succeed in 1934's station-to-station game. When he's facing that's when he's facing a right-handed pitcher.
Defense, Billy Hamilton's one of the best bronze defensive cards, but are you going to sacrifice his hitting to get this outstanding defense in that era?
I might. I've put Billy in caps a lot, and the man does have a knack for hitting triples. There's no real way for us to tell if a pitcher has, or if a batter has a triples rating, or is better or worse than expected at hitting triples. But he's really fast, and he does have a knack for hitting them. I would consider playing Billy in center here.
Okay. And one other one we'll look at. Let's look at gap power. Guy like Jerry Pretty, who's only eligible for one position. But look at that gap power. Look at that BABIP. Is he a card people should consider?
If he was only the other side, he'd only get those great ratings against lefties. And he's not a power hitter. He's going to hit doubles to left field. Well, we want to hit home runs to left field, not doubles. I would really love playing this card if he was on the opposite side and being a lefty hitter as opposed to a righty hitter. Because that way, with that high gap power and high BABIP, he will do some damage hitting doubles into the right field outfield.
Okay. And then when we go to the card shop and we're looking for batters to kind of fit this mold, we want to sort by what this time?
As batters, power versus right-handed pitchers. Also BABIP versus right-handed pitchers. Remember, even though the best way to score is hitting home runs as a right-handed batter, there's still going to be less home runs than modern. Because there's going to be more balls in play, a high BABIP rating is going to be helpful on every batter. So that Joey Gallo 35 BABIP isn't going to be that helpful.
And this card you're not going to use because there's no defense.
Correct. I would need better for my DH, but I do like the BABIP. He's going to be able to hit for average. Average is good. You're not an out. But we still need the slug to score. Righties are going to do it with homers. Lefties are going to do it with doubles and triples.
Okay. So first and foremost, you're still going to look for that power versus right-handed. So if we look at someone like this first baseman here, not enough gap power, right?
One thing I do recommend, you might even want to think about it in other categories, is good old Dave Kingman. He's an excellent third baseman. He's right-handed, hits dingers.
So, yeah, Dave Kingman just underneath Gallo there, but the right side of the plate. Oops, wrong one. Gallo, Kingman. All right. So a few cards there from Mr. Black there, kind of the build that you're looking for your PTCS. Again, join the Laptop Hound Discord if you want to ask more personal questions right in the Discord there. Mr. Black's there to help you guys out, especially when cards come out tomorrow and there's so many to choose from. If you're looking over a card and wondering, hey, I wonder if he fits the PTCS environment, ask away in the Discord and Mr. Black will give you some advice. And as he said, good luck to all of you that are looking to do well in this tournament. Any kind of closing remarks, last little bits of advice you have?
Well, it was in the slideshow, but I'll say it one more time. Look, this is the life we chose. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I'm sorry. Like, I've played Henderson Alvarez with the best HR versus right in the game, and I've seen him give up 3 home runs in 1 inning before. There's nothing else you can do. I mean, what else matters other than pitcher's home run rate when it comes to preventing home runs? If it's not your day, it's not your day. I hope it is, but if it's not, it's all right. We'll get him next time.
Now, of course, you're looking forward to getting the top card here, but when I showed the prizes that will be given out, is there any other ones that really stand out to you that you're kind of hoping for?
That Ali Reynolds looks pretty good. He's a righty starter with reverse splits. Gold is hurting for right-handed starting pitchers. If you don't win one, there's still going to be a lot of them printed because the low gold, I think there's like 8 per category, so 80. It's a virtual LE out of maybe close to 100, but it's still a pretty good card.
Yeah. And I don't know the math on this, but this would go to everyone from 17th to 32nd, so 16.
160 copies.
Yeah, there you go, 160 copies. So we should be able to pick one up on the card shop for a reasonable price. All right, yeah, so looking forward to this PTCS and building my team. Lots to think about. And tomorrow's going to throw that wrench in it again because so many cards. If you missed it earlier, some cool names coming out tomorrow. Snuffy, Ham, Kitty, Garland, and so on. Plus some of the bigger names we're going to get in packs. Steve Garvey, Doe, Drayback, Roy Halladay, Tris Speaker, Eddie Plank. Lots that you're going to have fun opening.
There he is.
He's back.
What awful timing that was. So that's exactly what happened is it popped out again. I'm like, no. And because I can see that I look like this.
Oh, that was
right.
That's a laptop stream. I'm usually muted, and sometimes my guests just freeze like that. So thanks, Mr. Black.
Okay, you too. You have a good day.
Okay, guys. Like I said, a special kind of Sunday stream. Let me roll my credits here at the end. Hope to see you tomorrow. Congratulations again to Cicero for the 5-pack win. Thanks to the followers, the subscribers, people in the chat asking questions, making comments. It is a great day for baseball. Tune in to DishNet very shortly where he will go through the World Series in the perfect leagues. Again, huge thank you. Enjoy your day. We'll see you next episode.
Ooh, isn't it a pity? And every year has its share of tears. Every now and then it's gotta rain. We're here for a good time, not a long time. So have a good time. The sun can't shine every day. We're here for a good time, not a long time. So have a good time. The sun can't shine every day. So have a good time. The sun can't shine every day.